The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Longevity Plus would like to thank you for joining our webinar today. Dr. Gary Gordon is an expert on nutrition, mineral metabolism, and anti-aging. He is a consultant to Longevity Plus, where he is responsible for designing effective, natural supplements that help support optimal health. Today, Dr. Gordon will be discussing the exciting new product, H-. Questions will be taken for Dr. Gordon's response today. To ask a question, please use the chat feature on your GoToWebinar control panel, and at the end of this program, Dr. Gordon will begin answering questions. Please note that privacy is kept when you use the chat feature and select staff only. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Gordon.
Welcome back. It's been another exciting week. This is Dr. Gary Gordon, and I had the privilege of attending the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians convention, their annual convention in Phoenix at the Biltmore, and there were some wonderful presentations. One highlight that I want to mention to you is a combined presentation of a registered pharmacist naturopath with another highly accredited naturopath, and the name of the talk was, "How do I get off these drugs, Doc?" That talk, if we could play that on national television, I assure you would reduce the sales of the pharmaceuticals that are killing our country. I repeat, killing. It would reduce their sales 80 to 90% if you listened to the presentation one time, and if you played it a second time, it would reduce it even further. So you need to know that the AANP is on the go, and this is their 2011 conference, and it was recorded. And if you have loved ones that can't get off their Nexium and can't get off their statins and can't get off all the rest of the garbage that passes for American medicine, you need to know that this combined presentation of two speakers, Dr. Letitia Dick, BSND, and Dr. Christy Fleetwood, ND, registered pharmacist. So, to get on today's topic, the reason we're talking today about H- is because, unbeknownst to most of us, there is a power failure behind all these symptoms, from fibromyalgia to cancer, all the hypertension, all of these symptoms, that people wind up getting some ridiculous drug, and all drugs by definition are poison. So when you take too much of the drug, you will die. But at the current time, according to the journal, the AMA article, the drugs that we prescribe are the fourth leading cause of death. But I would argue that they are the leading cause, but we'll save that discussion for another day. Because I've got to make you feel good enough. I've got to make you feel as good as I feel, have the energy that I've got, so that you can laugh at the statins and immediately understand the dangers of the Nexium and the dangers of all of the drugs they want to give you for the Fosamax for your breaking bones, that give you more broken bones. When you understand the system is totally out of control. So please understand that I'm in the energy business, but this is cellular energy, and that comes from mitochondria. That's the power plant in your cells. And that power plant actually is involved in Parkinson's, autism, aging, cancer. And there isn't any disease that we can't help solve when you put the energy back into the equation. So hold on, folks, because I've been giving weekly presentations about things like pulse electromagnetic field therapy, which is the most effective form of cellular exercise. That would mean that we're exercising your cells beyond what you could do, so I can exercise your pancreas or your kidney or your prostate or your bone or your brain. which is why we have people getting out of wheelchairs with serious conditions like MS and Parkinson's disease, traumatically responding, autism. So the PEMF is exciting. But not everybody is going to be able to access, even if it's $480 a month to lease these, you need 3 other people to make it affordable to most of us. If you only have to pay $120 a month, well, a lot of us will get it. So you need to have 3 buddies chime in and lease it. But let's see what I can do without the machine. So here we are to Albert Szent-Györgyi, Nobel Prize winner from Hungary, who discovered vitamin C and characterized it. And he said, and when I met him, because he was lecturing to our orthomolecular physicians in San Francisco a mere 35, 40 years ago. But when he talked about hydrogen, none of us heard what he was saying because it was out of our head. Now we know we have the hydrogen bomb. We have people stating that we'll be able to have a hydrogen-powered car. So maybe I can make you run on hydrogen. But this is not being talked about widely. But it's quite interesting that plants take in water and sunlight and break the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And the hydrogen is used to make carbohydrates and proteins. So hydrogen becomes the building block for many of the nutrients, the plant-based nutrients that we live on. So everybody thought we're a carbon world, but we're not just a carbon world. It's 1/3 carbon, 1/3 hydrogen, 1/3 oxygen. So of course, when I'm in Tokyo and you're in the department store, they have an oxygen bar because they know people are getting low on oxygen because we've depleted that too. But we don't talk much about this hydrogen equation. But when I took the tiny little tablet of H- that you can put into any nice RO water would be a good selection. And if it's in a nice glass container, you will see the bubbles form immediately. It effervesces. But this time it's giving off hydrogen, everybody, and hydrogen turns out to be a missing part of the equation because, as I am trying to tell you, at age 76, I have been rejuvenated. I cannot believe how good I feel. I cannot believe that I have a new prostate, a new heart, a new back. I don't have my bilateral carpal tunnel. It's amazing that without any surgery, no drugs, working with my body, allowing my exercise program, my diet, my positive thinking to heal my body. But when I took that 1 bottle of hydrogen water, everything was dramatically enhanced. How can I prove that? Pretty easy. Count my pulse when I get to the top of the steep hill that I live on. And if my pulse used to have to go to 140 to get to the top, and now it only goes to 110 after drinking 1 bottle of hydrogen water, you'd say, what was in that water? Maybe we can run the Earth on hydrogen. So our hydrogen, you could assume, just like magnesium, you're deficient in it without even questioning it. I'm an expert at measuring it. Exatest, E-X-A-T-E-S-T, sublingual test, measuring cells on the bottom of your tongue, looking at it under electron microscope, and then using X-ray fluorescent. I can assure you 98% of all people are not adequate with magnesium. But nobody's doing anything about that, but that's why I have everybody on the multiple that I designed, which of course has got the magnesium and the zinc and the selenium, but that multiple is in my Beyond Chelation Improved, so I know what I'm doing and I'm getting very good results, not just in my body, but in those lucky people who are lucky enough to follow my lead, follow my suggestions. If they do a phone consultation, I record it. So I want people to know that hydrogen makes it all work much better. We store hydrogen in hydrogen pools and organs. The hydrogen is the smallest atom known. It only has 1 electron. When it becomes ionized, it goes in and becomes loosely attached. They don't move in the body unless they're associated with hydrogen. So if we look at this, the effect of hydrogen ions on humans. Well, we all have heard about pH, but not too many of us have heard about oxidative reductive potential, ORP. And we've never made a lot of sense out of the fact that, as I've told people, one of the reasons I was sick for so many years was my stomach makes no stomach acid. So the lining of my stomach was supposed to secrete the hydrogen and the chloride so that I'd be able to break my food down. So if we look at the big picture, hydrogen ions' effect on cell walls. The cell wall is a vital role in letting the nutrient get into the cell and the waste products out, and that's why I've been so impressed with what I've been able to do with the pulsed electromagnetic field device. Because if you read anything on my website, gordonresearch.com, you will see that we have there all of the key articles about PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field, and we can prove that we can heal something that never healed. That's pretty exciting. They first just proved that they could take a fracture that had never healed. 3, 4, 5 years after it didn't heal, you could still talk about healing it? How? By putting the energy back in. But now, when I do that, because we're also toxic, when I make your cells energized, they will take in the nutrient, but they'll also push out the toxins. And everybody's so toxic that if I don't plan my program carefully, you'll just get sick and you won't ever talk to me again, because I can push toxins out fast enough to get a Herxheimer, and your skin can break out, or you can have a flu, and you can think that, life is terrible. But I can avoid that when I have you on Bioenergy C, the Zeal Gold, and now the H-. We'll get more into that in a minute. What I'm trying to have you be aware of then is that hydrogen ions assist in the electrical balance. Now we are a body electric. That was a good book called The Body Electric. And all the PEMF that I talk about, always the magnet field that I work with, PEMF, always induces a weak direct current field. But in order for these things to really function, not only do I need to tie up the toxins, I need to have a sustained source of energy. So instead of just a piece of pine wood that you put in the fireplace and it burns brightly for 30 minutes and then there's nothing, whereas you put oak in and it might burn for 6 or 8 or 10 hours, if I add the Zeal Gold and put that in the water, when you put the H- tablet in the water, now I've made all the extra hydrogen ions into sustained release so that you can feel good at 2 in the afternoon as well as at 10 o'clock in the morning. So this hydrogen ion story is extremely exciting, because you're talking about what I've been always mentioning. In order for you to be healthy, you have to have a high transmembrane potential. And cancer cells always are way lower than normal cells, and so is every disease cell. So let's think, why are some cells in your body right now, today, trying to form cancer? Well, think about it. You sat behind a bus for 5 minutes and that fumes was going into your car. Now, those fumes, they're not good for you. You all know about carbon monoxide poisoning and how you could die. So just understand that you don't have to die from an exposure for it to be doing harm. And everybody has their bisphenol A in their body, and their lead, and their mercury, and their cadmium, and their arsenic, and the DDT, and all the rest of the things, dioxin, PCBs, all these things. Now, if I can assist your body in pushing those bad guys out, you can start to feel as good as I do. But it is quite important to understand that cancer itself, all of these things are the end result of the cell potential, the membrane potential getting so low that you wind up without a pump. So the cell isn't taking in potassium or putting out sodium, and it's clearly not getting rid of the toxins. So if we look at what's going on, we have big words for this, folks. We talk about the power cell. The power part of the cell is the mitochondria. That's the motor. And we talk about the electron transport chain. And we can explain to you that that's where you generate the energy that lets you do what you are on Earth to do with this life. Talking about this life, a lot of us have got some concerns because we've heard that the Mayan calendar somehow decides that December 21st next year, that's about 16 months away, seems to be the end of the calendar that they gave us. Some people thought that meant it's the end of the world. But I've really read an excellent book that might help you put everything that I'm telling you now into perspective. Because we do have a sick planet. And Al Gore is wrong. It has nothing to do with the car. It's all tied to the planet change, the Earth change. And to understand that better, I am going to recommend a book, which you'll see in the last slide, Fractal Time. But this book is going to try to bring you into an understanding that when the Earth goes through significant changes, as it did 5,000 years ago when the Egyptian dynasty collapsed, and a lot of people think that there's going to be some collapse of economies now, in both of those times, and in fact in most previous major end of one time and the beginning of another time, there was an amazing similarity to today's problems. The oceans were rising, and amazingly enough, the ice caps were melting. And if we look at it, there was global warming, and there was lots of wars and collapsing economies. And now, what am I talking about? Well, in the book Fractal Time, they point out that whenever the Earth's magnetic field weakens, and it does so pretty predictably, in fact, about every 250,000 years, normally the North Pole becomes South Pole. So when I put all this into your knowledge base, it comes down to you having friends right now who have been told they have to live on rat poison or Coumadin because they have atrial fibrillation. So, or they can do some really fancy work in a surgical procedure to try to change some of the electroconduction tissue in the heart and ablate part of the nerve tissue in the heart. But I'm telling you right here that that's all yesterday's medicine. Because this brand new report, August 15th, 2011, this pretty current, is telling you that it's the altered nitric oxide redox balance that's involved in setting the stage for atrial fibrillation. You don't need rat poison. You don't need surgery. You need to know that Dr. Gordon has found the answer. And I'm not the only one, because other people have. And in fact, some people just taking the H- have seen a serious arrhythmia, that's when the heart's not beating every beat regularly, go away with just H-. So we better get on into this story so you get the whole grasp of this exciting story. So understand then, what we're telling you is that it is free radicals that are really what you're fighting. And H- on top of my zeolite, on top of my power drink, on top of my oral chelation, on top of bioenergy C, which is the strongest, best tolerated oral form of vitamin C in the world. I just saw a doctor friend who's extremely knowledgeable, treats cancer all the time with vitamin C, and he's sitting there with serious gastrointestinal upset, not sure if he has to run to the bathroom, because he's taking the wrong form of vitamin C, and he's a very bright doctor. But he doesn't know that bioenergy C was designed for Dr. Gordon, who also used to get very, very serious gastrointestinal upset with diarrhea and cramps and gas, with all the vitamin C that I could buy from anybody, until we made the stomach-friendly vitamin C that is the most highly effective vitamin C delivery system available anywhere, called bioenergy C. So just, if you understood what this slide is telling you, it's saying that, oh, we help a few people with a statin because we get rid of a little bit of some of these free radicals. Folks, the folks that are on statins are what? Most of the heart patients in this country. If it was going to stop, the fibrillation so people could get off their blood thinner, their Plavix, their aspirin, their Coumadin, it would have done so long ago. What I'm doing is laughing at it, but it's nice to have current literature backing my position that I'm telling you that it's reactive oxygen species, free radicals, and no one can come near what the zeogold, the bioenergy C, and the H minus can do to change these numbers. And in fact, it's really interesting. We now have a test. You can blow into a small balloon, and as you blow that balloon up, we collect through a very special collection device the level of free radicals in your exhaled air. And I can bring all of you down dramatically with this test by merely doing the PMF. But of course we don't have pulsed electromagnetic field in every city yet. We don't even have magnet spas yet. We still have people wasting their money with sun tanning tables, which is the wrong answer. But we'll change the world. We're going to change it because the stuff is there, and people who get these treatments see the difference. They feel the difference. So let's look at it. H minus, active H minus. That number, folks, is 10 to the 19th. That's 10,000. That's 10 million. That's 10 billion. This is 10 trillion. So we're out here past those to the quadrillion. So what I'm saying to you is this. Minus 700 millivolt ORP. Now that's a number you can relate to because there's people selling Kangen water and they're getting people's ORP down, but it only stays down a few hours. We've been able to show that I can keep it down for weeks. So the point that I'm telling you is that I'm way beyond what anybody's doing with alkaline water. I'm right where the payoff is because, folks, I am getting younger by the day. It's incredible what my body, how it responds to these things that I'm lucky enough to have. My power drink, my oral chelation, these are expensive to take, I admit. But how many people, think about it, are told this year they have cancer, and between now and when they die, $100,000 minimum is going to get wasted. And I call it wasted because what? Most of the chemotherapy lets the patient live 2 weeks longer, but they have felt so sick they wish they were dead. So maybe it's helping them decide that it's okay to die. But spending $100,000 for worthless therapy that makes you feel like you wish you were dead, not a good idea. I hope to wake people up that we are on something here that's so powerful that when you add H minus, and you're going to have higher physical and mental health. You're going to have more water inside the cells so they're not dehydrated. You're going to have ATP production, folks. That's the adenosine triphosphate. That's the currency that allows you to do the work you need to do on a planet that's going to have serious troubles. The Mayan calendar and the December 21st, 2012, I'm sorry, 2112. These problems are real. They're not imaginary because, very simply put, every one of the major predictors, whether you want to talk about what somebody did, whether they were Nostradamus or Edgar Cayce or they were the Hopi, it makes no difference. All of those that have been thinking about how the world proceeds know that we are in a unique time, and it's partly because our entire solar system is way at the edge of the Milky Way, where these are unusual things that are going to happen in the next 14 months. And of course, it could be a little frightening, let's put it this way, but somehow life's going on. And we do know that the North Pole has become South Pole many, many times. We have the exact number calculated, usually about every 250,000 years, but now it's been 700,000 years, so it seems that pretty likely that maybe in our lifetime this North Pole, South Pole is going to happen, because it seems that we're in the time right now of change. And so this change, whether you read it in the Mayan books or you read it from Edgar Cayce, it doesn't make any difference. These prophecies of Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, the Aztecs, the Hopi, the Maya, and others have all sent unmistakable messages throughout time. Separated by hundreds of years of history and thousands of miles of distance, all of these major sources point to something big. And it's not just happening on December 21st. It's not an overnight thing you wake up and everybody's reborn, or it's a new earth. Spontaneous evolution, a really good book, which I'll show you in a minute, tries to explain to you that it can be a very positive Eden on the other side. But when you read Tom Levy's book, and he's a cardiologist and an attorney, cardiologist attorney, and he's talking about toxins and infections. So what is my health program? It's FIGHT, food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin. His book suggests to you that if you had enough C, you could overcome almost any challenge from tetanus to rabies to polio. But a lot of people couldn't take that much C because they don't know about our bioenergy C that's stomach friendly. And so what I'm trying to do, since we do know that vitamin C in the vein does magic, I'm trying to tell you a lot of people aren't going to go and spend $100, $150, or $200 in the doctor getting 50, 100, 200 grams of vitamin C in the vein, no matter how proven it is that it makes all cancers start to diminish in size. There's no cancer that can handle 200 grams of vitamin C, period. But we don't all have the money and the veins and the rest of it. So I'm trying to bring you into a world in which the bioenergy C and the H minus are additive, synergistic. They're getting closer and closer. They're not going to replace the IV, not as far as I can see at this time, but by the time you add the Zeogold and then start doing my total program, which as you know is FIGHT, and when you do FIGHT, you may have to think about how you're going to get some kind of a sauna, you're going to do some sweat, you're going to walk around the block, you need to share a pulsed electromagnetic field with somebody, maybe a doctor that buys one. We have quite a few doctors that now have leased these for $480 a month. These normally are $24,000, but at our show special, we still sell them for $20,000. But what I'm trying to say is that Dr. Levy said the whole illness picture, everything that's wrong with you, is electron deficiency disease. Electrons. In other words, vitamin C, you would look at, you didn't think of the physics in vitamin C. We've only thought of the biochemistry. But what we're showing you now is that vitamin C can do so many interesting things. It can be an antioxidant, it can be an oxidant, and that's complex. We've discussed it at previous webinars, and we've tried to wake people up that there is an approved, FDA-approved mixture of vitamin C with K3 so that it's FDA approved to treat bladder cancer. So if it treats bladder cancer, why wouldn't it be good for your breast cancer or your ovarian cancer or any other cancer that you might have? Think about it. But in this article, what we're teaching you is about redox cycling. This gets into big thing, but I told you the ORP, oxidative redoxin potential, is dramatically improved when you're lucky enough to have the H minus one single tablet. These things are very affordable. There's 90 little tablets in a jar, and the tablets are about the size of half your thumbnail, and you're not going to have to hold that thumb, because just like Zeogold was always a delivery system, a capsule that was not meant to be swallowed, it's a capsule that's meant to be opened and put in water. So now I have two things that you can put in water that will change that water. And amazingly enough, the Zeogold, which as you may or may not remember, is not just the most advanced form of zeolite on the face of the entire planet. And the good Lord put this sponge-like volcanic rock, which has these little tiny cages in it that trap lead, mercury, and cadmium. So it's a pretty special kind of rock, and it has a charge. But that rock works far better when you have more cages, little holes, and so in a stronger magnet. So there hasn't been anything ever in the field of zeolite. If you read all the articles on zeolite, they do not hold a candle to what I'm doing with Zeogold. But I added to the Zeogold because it is so powerful. It will work even better when it's got humic acid, which we added, and glutathione, and the all-R-lipoic acid. And when we put all of these things in there and add my special form of vitamin C, not in the heroic levels that I like everybody that wants to live a long time taking bioenergy C 1 teaspoon twice a day, but at least some of my unique vitamin C delivery system is in each capsule of Zeogold that you are instructed to open and put in 1 or 2 ounces of high quality water. Let it take about 2-3 minutes for it to become entirely hydrated, wet, because it becomes a colloid then. So then the rock has become, it's not dissolved, but it's going to become suspended in the water. So when I teach you about how vitamin K2 alone is helping leukemia cells commit suicide, so I never go a day without vitamin K2 because I know what it does. It's as important as vitamin D was ever could be, but for me it's even more important because K2 is how I'm going to have strong bones and soft arteries when I'm 95 years of age. So you need to know that it also happens to treat some kinds of cancers, as in leukemia. So this is the name of the drug that the FDA approved then for treating bladder cancer. So folks, is bladder cancer that much different than any other cancer? No. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it takes a lot of knowledge because people are busy. They look up K3. K3 looks like it's menadione. It looks like it's synthetic. They don't know enough about it. So take the K2, but add what I'm teaching you. We want you to know that Bioenergy C is the delivery system. And if you measure your loved ones with these 20-cent paper sticks, that green color, if it stays green, your loved ones are going to be very unhealthy because that green essentially means serious deficiency of antioxidant. In other words, they have so many toxins in their body, they're not fighting back against those toxins with an antioxidant. And when you want to live a long, long time, you take my Bioenergy C, you take a teaspoon slightly heaping, put it in water, drink it twice a day, and check your urine with that 20-cent stick, and then check your wife and check your kids, check your loved ones, because if you can keep your family in that bright yellow color, they are going to have a bright future. They'll have a bright life. So that simple stick moves you from wondering, is this vitamin C any better than any other vitamin C? Well, real simple. Just go back, find if you can get another vitamin C anywhere that keeps your test when you do it at midnight on Sunday night and 6 a.m. on Monday morning. When you always test yourself at random times throughout the week, you win any fight for health if you keep it in the yellow color. So you want one that works. And it's the same way with the hydrogen, and they all work together. And the zeolite makes it all long-acting so that now you're getting another whole part of the solution. We all know what the problem is. Low energy, high levels of toxins, denuded, devitalized food. I mean, we all know what's wrong. But most of you don't know that there's an American Association of Clinical Chemists, and they have a handbook for $250, and you can read it free of charge by going to the Amazon.com website. They have the whole book there. So put in the name Handbook of Zeolite Science and Technology and read all the pages, because there's 110 references here that tell you that places like Sloan Kettering have a website that talks about zeolite in cancer. So if your doctor tells you he's never heard of zeolite, just say, I'll try to get you educated, doctor. And the world's knowledge is doubling every 2.5 years, so you're forgiven. You can't know everything. But this is the tablet, the Zeo Gold, and it has in it all our lipoic acid, the humic acid, the glutathione. It has in it the special form of vitamin C we call Bioenergy C. And so with those extra ingredients, there is nothing that can come close to this when you add the H-. You'll know that you are as healthy as you can be when you can see this kind of energy coming out of you. But the Earth's magnetic field is where we should get this energy from, but the Earth's going through changes. And so we now know that these changes are significantly affecting human behavior. And as I said in the book Fractal Time by Greg Braden, what you now know is that the Earth's change is because this is going on, folks. Inside of our Earth, there's something the size of a moon, and it's molten material, iron, and it's spinning while we're spinning, and the net result is the combined effects of those lead to the generation of an electrical charge, and the electric currents always lead to the development of a magnetic field. And it's a magnetic field that protects us from instantly being fried to death the sun. And as you can now know, Al Gore was wrong, but this is very simple. When this is going through a period of change, and this is how much change is going on right now, the North Pole has moved from there to there in just 6 years. So please understand that I'm not dreaming it up when I tell you that it will one day become South Pole. Again, it's documented in any good literature. Just type in the word Earth changes. So it's supposed to happen every 200,000 years. It hasn't happened for 780,000 years. So I think maybe it's going to happen in the not too distant future. And so these magnetic fields, when the north becomes south, is called a flip-flop. And this is Science News talking about it, trying to make sure that you understand that these are field reversals. And nothing's going to let us suddenly make it go away, but your heart is a powerful magnet. And when a whole group of people are focused on one thought at the same time, amazing things happen. For example, a demonstration project was done to show that a group of people dispersed throughout the New York City area were able to dramatically focus on reducing crime and violence in New York City, and the results were stunning. The police chief said, "Can we keep you?" Always, they love the change. So what I'm saying to you is that if I can get you to be as healthy as you should be and can be, that increased electromagnetic energy that I want your body emanating could help us solve the problems that we face as described in the book called Fractal Time. So try to understand that in 26,000 years there's been some collapse of a few what we would call periods. One period, as I point out, was the end of the Egyptian dynasty. And now, after 5,000 years, there might be another economy, a civilization going through change. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be leading right to Garden of Eden, but there could be some discomfort between here and there. Dr. Lipton is a really incredible molecular biologist. In his book, Spontaneous Evolution, along with a book by Dr. Greg Braden, these two books will help you sleep well when you start getting all concerned about what's going to happen when the Mayan calendar looks like the Earth ends. In fact, one book says Earth annihilated. That's not what's going to happen, and that's clear from the history that they've been able to dig up. We've been through changes like this before. So we're living not at the end of the world, but at the end of a time. It's a 5,000-year cycle. And what comes next? We have some ability to influence. But it's hard to influence things when you're in bed and can't get out of bed. So I would like to help everybody feel as good as I feel. And so getting the cells of living tissues to be really fully charged with electricity is part of it. And you can't just hold on to two electric wires and stick them in the wall socket. It doesn't work that way. So what I'm teaching you is that we have all obviously had bad days when you knew you'd been exposed to some toxic things, food that was spoiled, air that was rotten. So I'm just teaching you that those are challenges to the cell. And when that happens, that charge on the cell gets disrupted. So it's really great to have Dr. Martin Milner, a naturopath, who's been teaching at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland for many years, letting everybody know that when you are able to use a PEMF device, you will tremendously influence not just cell membranes and mitochondria, but the entire metabolism of those cells, the movement of nutrients out and the waste, nutrients in and the waste products out. So this is Dr. Martin Milner at this Center for Natural Medicine, where he practices this kind of medicine. And it's pretty exciting when you see he has reported these kind of effects. He's reversed end-stage coronary artery disease in one patient. In other words, they didn't have the money to do a heart transplant, and they were at the end of their life. and he couldn't get them well as fast. The easy cases, like if you have a shoulder that doesn't work, or an Achilles plantar fasciitis that you can't walk, or low back pain as I had, or I mean the easy stuff, well, a lot of that's going to get markedly improved with 10-minute treatments as little as 2 or 3 times a week. But that lady wound up having to buy her own machine because she needed an hour a day to regenerate her heart muscle. So she went from proven heart failure, where no surgeon could help. They'd already done stents and bypass, which I consider both of them to be largely useless. But that's my opinion because I know what to do nutritionally that replaces stenting and bypass surgery. But another patient with 20-year history of migraines, living on 4 drugs, stopped by the use of PEMF. Another patient with pelvic scar, after 3 months of therapy, the scar was completely gone. Dramatically improved bone-on-bone knee joint. Now, isn't that interesting that instead of having to buy a knee and have it inserted at the hospital in hopes that it's the right material, we saved this patient's knee. So improved range of motion in the surgical adhesions, treats depression, memory, attention, traumatic brain injury, stroke rehabilitation, even autism. Tendonitis, back pain. This is absolutely easy to help with this device. So this is the article that he wrote in Townsend Newsletter, which is the same issue of Townsend Newsletter that has my article about chelation. So the device we're talking about here is PEMF, and he tells all the details of how proven this case was and how seriously ill the patient was. End-stage heart disease. So folks, you know, we have a system that's topsy-turvy because we are able to get, you know, some kind of government insurance if we have serious trouble like this, and the government will then pay for us to get some of these expensive approaches to health. But what is not being told is that they fail to help a tremendous number of people, and they spend $50,000 or $100,000 of the public coffer. And so what I'm teaching you is that the H-1, my power drink, the Beyond, it's not going to get covered by insurance, but it doesn't fail. I don't get failures. So there is remission of unstable angina, partial prolapse followed by remission. So this interesting article by Haldewanger is talking about electrical property of cancer cells. And when cells are electronegative, they are now becoming quite advanced in their cancer because membrane degeneration is part of what's going on. And the membranes get permeable so that the potassium, magnesium migrate from the cell, and the sodium and water accumulate inside, so the cells are puffy, too much sodium inside, and they can't push the sodium back out and let the potassium in. So it's pretty interesting when you look at cancer cells thrive in low energy, low oxygen, and that's what I reverse with everything I'm telling you about. And since most of us can't afford to have a PEMF at home, we want you to really study what I'm telling you here, that adding H- to my Beyond Chelation and my Zeogold, and the more you put together my Bioenergy C, you're going to be protecting the body against these toxic compounds that disrupt the electrical potential of the cell membrane. And the structure of the mitochondrial membrane will deactivate the electron transport chain and disturb oxygen. So what we're saying is this. Everybody, if you follow CNN special called Toxic America on my website, or you watch, just put in Google the word 10 Americans, you will know how many toxins are absolutely in you without spending the $4,900 at Mount Sinai School of Medicine that it takes to measure how many toxins you've got. But since no one has ever passed the test, I'd rather spend some money getting you feel as good as I do. So since the treatment's not going to be covered by insurance anyhow, you need to start thinking about what can we do to help you enjoy optimal health that you're entitled to. Remember, I was born with gene defects. I was born with total achlorhydria. I had the inability to absorb the minerals. I had the lowest levels of magnesium you could measure. I had the highest levels of mercury because all my teeth rotted out, and they put in all that mercury and then took it out and put it in again. So what I'm teaching you is to combine some physics with some biochemistry, and this is the physics. And I have used both the office portable and the portable one that lets me easily wheel on these big wheels out to the barn. And if you're in the office, you only want small wheels. But anyhow, these devices reduce pain. This is because they are pulsed electromagnetic field. They reduce inflammation, improve range of motion, give you functional recovery, reduce muscle loss after surgery. So I think you get the picture that there's some exciting things happening to my health, and I want to share those with you so that you try to figure out what of all these things I am talking about can you put together. And as I have asked many times, this by Scott Forsgren was 100 hours worth of his work, spending the time on my website to be able to put this 18-page document together so that in one simple thing of just downloading this document, you wouldn't have to watch all 6 or 7 hours of the webinars where I explain the food, the importance of positive thinking, that's your focus, the infection, the genetics, the heavy metals, the hormones, and the toxins. We have a hormone that if you don't tell your loved ones who are facing change of lifetimes, perimenopause, and they're worried about breast cancer, if you don't tell them about HRT, herbal remedy from Thailand, you're cheating your loved ones, because this is an affordable alternative to preventing the painful intercourse, the depression, the insomnia, the hot flashes, the bone loss, the thinning of the vaginal lining, all these changes that occur unless you get the right kind of hormonal support, which we call HRT, herbal remedy from Thailand. So those of you that are health professionals, please know that you are free to join FACT, and that way you can see how your colleagues around the world, there's 3,000 members, what do they do when the patient has MS? What do they do when the patient's in menopause? So please know for the health professional that this is a service that I maintain free of charge for all health professionals. So we have received a question about, will the product help psoriasis in any way? I thank you for your question. We love to get questions. And so let me tell you the long and the short of it. I can give you a written guarantee that I can show you people with psoriasis that is so advanced, so disabling, that they cannot go out in public. They look like leper. So my friend in the Black Forest in Germany, Dr. John Ionescu, at the very interesting clinic that he has there with about 180 inpatients, where he treats them for psoriasis by doing the following. He measures their level of these toxins and starts them on their detox program. Everybody fails. There isn't a person on the planet that doesn't have toxins. And then he gets you off the foods you're sensitive to, and he makes sure that if you're sensitive to that tomato, that there isn't something that's given to you that has tomato in it. In other words, he really has a tight control because he's got a beautiful kitchen, all 100% vegetarian food, and they are non-genetically modified. But what he wants to do is make sure that we don't stress your system by giving you food you're sensitive to. And then with psoriasis, we know that we have got food sensitivities without any question, and we have to get the toxins out. Now, when you get a lot of psoriasis, it's kind of hard to sit in a sauna because it gets kind of itchy if I start trying to have you sweat your toxins out. So, yes, it's all part of the program. And when the question says specifically, will H- help psoriasis in any way, my answer is very simple. All health problems come down to a common pathway. That pathway, as I'm suggesting, is if you look at it from the viewpoint of physics, it's electron deficiency, and I use the physics because that way I can get you interested in hyperbaric oxygen, and I can get you interested in the importance of ultraviolet blood irradiation to lower the infection. Look, all the things that we can do when we know that we want psoriasis patients, whether you have fibromyalgia or cancer, it makes no difference. All diseases go through a common pathway. It's just based on some of genetic factors that causes one disease to look like Alzheimer's, and the next patient, the same set of circumstances, seems to give them breast cancer. So when we talk psoriasis or breast cancer or autism or learning disorder, Alzheimer's, always FIGHT is the answer. Now, because a lot of people don't want to read the 18 pages because that's a lot of work to read it all, then you know, well, what am I going to do about if it's food, food supplements, if it's a need for positive focus, if it's infection I have to deal with, genetics, heavy metals, hormones, toxins. Doc, you're asking me to fight a war on 5 fronts at the same time? So obviously there's going to be people that want one thing that might help at least a little bit with all of the FIGHT program. And vitamin C is one thing that always will help with any condition if you get enough of it, which is why I have everybody eventually buy a book with 1,200 references called Curing the Incurable. But with H-, I've now taken all of the work that vitamin C was doing by itself, and I've magnified it with the synergistic compound of hydrogen, because hydrogen and vitamin C are all working through simple idea of the electrons. So I now want to tell you, somebody's asking me, does PEMF help with sleep? Well, I can tell you this. PEMF is going to markedly change the number of free radicals. I already showed you that PEMF would be one answer to auricular fibrillation. That's why I'm so excited, because when I did my PEMF on top, remember, I've been on my basic supplement program. It's on my website. You can't swallow more supplements than I do. But in spite of all that, my back pain hadn't gone away. I didn't have a new prostate and didn't have a new bladder, and I didn't have a freedom from back pain and the numbness of the hand. So for me, PEMF just made everything go quicker, better, faster. And now that we have H-, that's going to make all that true. So if a person is not sleeping well, we've seen always that we need to do my fight program, because if you take Ambien or some stupid drug, you're winding up treating symptoms, which is, you know, sometimes essential if you can't figure it out. But it's difficult to figure out which food do you need to stop, because, you know, people thought they needed a glass of warm milk before they go to bed. For some people, if you have milk sensitivity, that's the wrong thing. So what PEMF do is making you tougher and healthier so that whatever's wrong is going to be easier for you to deal with it. You'll have the energy to start to deal with it. So looking at sleep, a lot of people are taking hydroxytryptophan or the actual tryptophan itself, and people have always used valerian and different kinds of hops, valerian, skullcap. There's always been interesting herbal remedies we can take, but since we have a huge population that are not barely sleeping at all, I want to mention to you that exercise still is the best treatment we have, and I have an article I've recently sent to my 3,000 doctors who belong to my Forum on Anti-Aging and Chelation Therapy, FACT. Those 3,000 doctors, we sent the article showing that exercise was stronger than chemo, radiation, or surgery if the patient had a brain tumor. Exercise provably made the patient live a year longer when all the other things only let them live a few months longer. Really interesting to know that if I can get you on my health promoting program so you start to have a core value of actual energy so that you don't hesitate to want to walk around the block and then later get a bicycle and do some exercise. We all have to do some. So if I can raise anybody's energy, they will start to use their body, and then you sleep deeply. Any suggestions on treating Lyme disease? Well, Lyme is my favorite topic. I changed the term from LYME to LIMED, lowered immune metabolic encephalopathy syndrome. Lyme's, L-I-M, I'm sorry, Lyme is like the British Lyme, L-I-M-E-S. Why did I change the name? Lowered immune metabolic encephalopathy, that's the brain, or myopathy if it's in the muscles. The point that I'm making is this. AIDS and Lyme have a lot in common. And everybody immediately chased and wanted to find something to kill the HIV virus load, which has been useful, but nothing keeps it under control other than a healthy body. So that my fight program is essential for Lyme or AIDS or cancer or anything else, because in my fight program, you spend a whole hour on my website learning my approach to find out which food you can eat and which one you can't. Because that's kind of key to beating anything. I don't care whether it's Lyme or cancer. If we don't teach people a lot more about everything that's covered with food, focus, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin. So try to understand that Lyme, we actually have a silver product called Advanced Cellular Silver 200, ACS 200. We have the published paper, which anybody at Longevity Plus, you call Longevity Plus 1-800-580-PLUS. That's Longevity Plus, and so that's or 1-800-580-7587. But the point is this, you ask them for the report so that you'd be able to know that we have proof from a BYU, Dr. Robinson, who's the director of the microbiology laboratory, that ACS silver does take about 8 minutes, and it kills a lot of things like Candida and Marissa a lot faster. So it does take a bigger dose. But at least clearly we have an oral product that can help anybody lower their total body burden of all of the infections. So please understand that since there's always co-infections in Lyme, and today nobody can tell you you don't have Lyme because it's so complicated. So if they can't tell you don't have it, are we sure who really have it? So that's why I give up trying to determine, do you have cytomegalic virus or valley fever or which is coccidiomycosis, or do you have chlamydia or candida? What infection you have? I teach everybody that you all, every one of us, have some infection. So whether it's Lyme or herpes, which they're now tying more and more into Alzheimer's, I mean, all of these, in fact, almost everybody has some form of herpes if adequately tested in their bloodstream. So that's why I developed the fight program, because if we teach you how to fight for your health and you can start to digest what I'm telling you, things like H- would dramatically change your life, as all these collectively have given me a new life. So at age 76, I'm looking forward to the next 10 years, because I think I'll be getting younger all the time. And thank you so much for your attention. We will be back next week to try to bring all this into some understandable format so you understand better what's coming up December 21, 2012, and what you can do to protect yourself and help the Earth survive these changes the Earth is going through. Thank you. This is Dr. Gordon. Looking forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. We encourage you to browse Dr. Gordon's website at www.gordonresearch.com. The products that Dr. Gordon has formulated are available through Longevity Plus. Please visit our website at www.longevityplus.com or call 1-800-580-7587 to place an order. We value all of your time, and thank you again for joining us.